Welcome back to another episode of Unpacked. Today, we are going to be chatting with my girl, is like my baby girl, Alicia Williams-Guyton. We're going to be chatting about prepare for more. This is a pretty recent topic that Tim has been talking about, and it has been, he spent, 6 or 7 weeks on this topic. And so I'm sure you all are familiar with it. If not, I'd love for you to go and check out the Prepare for More series. It has been incredible, very prophetic word. And so today we're going to talk about what does prepare for more mean to you and to you, Alicia, because it has so many ways that we can go. We're preparing for more for transition, maybe more in our marriage, maybe more in our finances, maybe we're preparing more in our homes, in our lives, and in our hearts. So would you join me in unpacking this topic? And I'd love to hear from you in the feedback in the comments.
Awesome.
Alicia! Woo! I'm so glad you're here with me today.
It's good to be home.
Come
oh my
through,
God.
honey. Girl, you have had a lot going on.
Yeah.
You just got married, moved to Houston, had a baby, moved back to Dallas. That's a lot of transition.
It's a lot of transition.
And that's just in the recent. That's just in the recent.
Yeah. That's the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I've missed you in those 5 years.
Have I ever missed you? I was like, these little phone calls, Zooms, duos.
I know. It's not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah.
So I want to know.
Yes.
How has prepare for more? And what does that mean? What does that mean for you?
Sad.
Yeah. What is prepare? Because I know it means a lot. So we could talk all day.
Yeah. Like
so start it
prepare
off,
for more
honey.
Is my whole life. Like this whole.
I would agree to that.
Yeah, it's my whole life.
I would agree.
I mean, from the day I was born to now, it's my whole life.
When you came charging out the womb, I was preparing for more. Absolutely right. I'm preparing for my next breath.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but more recently, this Prepare for More series is just, every week has hit home. Like I was like, prepare the first one after the anniversary service.
This is a 10-minute segment.
Like, check. Like, seriously, are you seriously going to come get me right now? Like, I just got back and don't nobody know I'm back. And you coming for my life already. Okay.
All in your business.
All in my business. Like, you stay in my business.
I didn't tell him anything.
Reading my mail every day. I was like, no, sir. So it's funny because like Monday mornings, my son and I, we have Embassy playing as that's how we start our day.
Yeah.
That's our devotional. That's our, let's stay plugged in.
Come on.
And, he recognizes y'all's face every time y'all come on the screen. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah.
Because how old is he now?
He's 4 months.
Come on, 4 months. That's newborn.
Newborn.
You just pushed him out.
Yeah.
You look amazing,
Thank
honey.
you.
Aww.
So,
mommy's baby.
I know. Mommy's baby had a baby.
Mommy's baby had a baby.
So with the whole transition thing, I think I will start back with the beginning. Let's start with getting married in the first place.
Yeah.
Because my husband at the time was living in Houston. So
That's
I
right.
had to hear a word.
You had to hear a word.
Like, I had to hear a word from the Lord.
Yes.
Because that was never in my plan.
No.
At all. Like, I'm like, you want me to do what? I felt like Lord was asking me to sacrifice Isaac. And it was just like,
Yeah.
But you just gave me this. Like, ever since I was a little girl, I've always known that I wanted to be in Dallas. I needed to be in Dallas, but I could never really explain why. It was just like something that God put in my heart. Like, you need to get there. So I'm like, I'm finally here. And everything that you told me about being here and settled here.
Settled.
Like,
Friends.
I'm seeing these manifestations.
Family.
Like, you said this was going to happen. It happened. I'm like, yes, I'm living my best life. And then you going to throw me this curveball saying, now leave. What?
Yeah.
Sir.
It was so hard for you.
Sir.
It was hard. Yeah.
Like, I think I came to you and Tim, like, quite a few times, like, are you sure though? Like, I know.
Did you marry the right man?
Like, I know I heard the Lord, but sometimes we can be thinking stuff and be like, but I know when I hear the Lord because it never sounds like anything I would actually say.
Right.
And for him to be like, go to Houston, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Because I know this is something I would not want to do on my best day.
Right.
This is really you, Lord. Okay.
Yeah.
And I literally had to make that altar for Dallas and an altar for Houston.
Yeah.
Because I was there for 5 years.
Yeah.
And my life was on pause. Like, I literally felt like God just turned that water faucet off and was just like, okay, chill. because there's something I need to get through you.
Yep.
And there's some things I need to teach and have you all experience so that he could see me in a different light. But in order for that to happen, because you like to always solve stuff and fix things and be like, oh, I got it, sit down. And I'm like,
right.
Just, no.
Yeah.
So it just, that transition period as a newlywed was already something.
I know that was hard.
The greatest lesson I learned from that was, sometimes when God's asking you to make a sacrifice or make a move, the biggest thing he taught me in that was sometimes it's never even about you. Like that blessing,
right? Absolutely.
Even though I got to reap the benefit of the blessing, I got married, I have a beautiful child.
Right.
That lesson and that blessing was more for him and those that I was about to come in contact with. Than it was like, so how selfish are you? If I would have stayed because I wanted what I thought was his plan for my life when he told me to move here in the first place. Right. He's like, but you don't trust me enough to let me lead you somewhere else.
Right.
Because sometimes in life, we have to take a detour.
Come on.
And just because you take a detour doesn't mean you're not going to reach your destination.
Come on.
Doesn't mean you're not going to see the fulfillment of his promises. It just means that there's something that has to be taken care of over here. Right. Because you might have to meet Jill, Andre, whoever to receive a blessing he's put inside of you for them.
That's right.
So that's just kind of like how I've seen that transition point, just from getting married to actually making that decision saying, okay, Lord, no, you really want me to go. Like he literally had to sit me down. I was driving down 35. I'll never forget it. And he was like, I need you to go. And it's not even about you. Yeah. But you have to understand that as much as I love you and I have a plan for you, I have plans for my son. That's right. I have plans for this person here, and you just don't see it yet. That's why one of my favorite verses in the Bible is Ecclesiastes 3:11, where it talks about
whoever reads Ecclesiastes. I mean, I like it.
I live for it.
I like Ecclesiastes.
Don't nobody want to be in the Old Testament?
Nobody references Ecclesiastes. I'm an Old Testament girl. I'm here for the Hebrew. I'm here for it all day.
Come on with your Thompson Chain reference.
But come through Ecclesiastes.
It talks about how he has set eternity in our hearts, and we don't understand the full measure or the scope of it. And I really had to think, I'm like, Lord,
say that again.
We don't understand the full measure or scope of his plan, even though he has set eternity in our hearts. Yes. And he says that in his time, he makes all things beautiful. Yes, honey. So even in my worst days, when I made the transition, and the one thing I remember we talked about, and I lived up to it, I lived by it. I was like, I will never once complain about being here. Yeah. I may be frustrated about being here because I don't understand why I'm here. Right. But there is a plan. And as long as I keep going, I'm going to keep growing. Yeah. And I had to really see that I wasn't sacrificing his promise. Yes. I was literally laying myself on the altar, which is what he wanted the whole time. He was just like, I need you to put yourself on the altar.
Waiting on you.
Put yourself on the altar so you can see the bigger picture.
That's right. Don't send Isaac. You go.
You go. He's like, I'm not asking for Isaac. Right. I didn't ask you to sacrifice Dallas. Right. I'm asking you to sacrifice what you think I said I want you to have.
Right. Or what you wanted. What you wanted.
Right. Yes. Because a lot of times we get these words. We'll get these impressions in our hearts. Sometimes it may come through a prophet. Sometimes it's just something we hear in our quiet time. Yeah. But sometimes we get that word and we just run.
And we never ask when.
Or wait for the rest of the instructions.
Or even wait for
an explanation. Say, you know what? You didn't quite let me fit. You heard, I'm going to send you this. And it was like, I'm out.
That's right.
And he was like, but there was more to the story.
That's right.
Can you sit down for like 5 more minutes?
You didn't have an ear to hear all the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So even though it was like, okay, I need you to move to Houston. Yeah. I was like, okay, but where's the rest of it? Because by this point, I was like, Lord, we've walked long enough to know that there's more, right? And he was like, no. Do that part first. Right. Let me see if you just gonna do that because I know you. Right. And I know that you feel like I'm never gonna bring this back full circle.
I gave you something and took it back.
Right. Mm-hmm. Because you've seen some kind of stuff in your past from childhood and you were like, wait a minute, hold on, but Lord, you're supposed to be all sovereign.
So what you're saying is that sometimes when God does something and we go through a bit of a transition, and we've had to have transitions before in our life that maybe we didn't like. Yeah. That we may have also blamed God for that transition. So that now when it's actually him doing something that maybe it wasn't him initially, that now we don't want to do it because our fear comes in and it hinders us from wanting to go because we blamed him if it didn't work out the last time. Am I close? A little bit?
No, you're good. And sometimes it's not even about transition. Maybe we were waiting on God to fulfill a promise.
Fulfill a promise, yeah.
Or not even, it wasn't even God's fault. Let's make it even more natural. Maybe we had an issue with a parent relationship or a friend relationship, and something that looked close enough like this.
Yes.
Or you have a history where it's like, okay, well, as soon as something starts getting good in my life, all of a sudden it just crumbles.
Yes.
And you're like, but when am I going to actually just be settled?
Yeah.
When am I going to feel established?
Yes,
when am I going to feel just rooted like, I got this? And he's like, every time you feel like I got this, Lord, why do you keep ruffling my feathers? And it's like, because when things cease to grow, when water ceases to move, it becomes stale and stagnant, and you have to always be fluid.
Yes.
When it comes to God, you have to just be willing to go. So because it's not so much that he's trying to, and I learned this. One of the greatest lessons I learned back in 2014. And it's been like my life mantra ever since, no matter who I talk to, and they tell me what they're going through. And I always tell them, I'm like, God never leads you to a place to hurt you.
That's right.
It's never to hurt you.
No.
He's leading you there so he can equip you. He can empower you.
Yeah.
He can strengthen you. He's trying to teach you something. Or maybe you just need a moment to rest.
Right.
And as much as I could not see why I had to go to Houston, Houston was my place of rest.
Yes, it was. And you needed Houston.
I needed it.
This is so good. I am sure that there are some of you watching and listening to this, and we have all felt this same way, that maybe, or that we blamed God for a thing that has happened before in our life. And so when he's actually telling us to do something now, we don't want to do it, or we have a hesitation. And I don't know anybody that hasn't had that same sentiment or feeling.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's something that we've all experienced, but that is great because we don't understand that when he's in it and when he's doing it, not just out of our own and not what we want him to do. Although something similar has happened before, we've got to trust God. We've got to trust God, because when you went to Houston, I know that was a big thing. I mean, we've had conversation after conversation after conversation. Like, are you sure? Is this
the Lord? Are you sure?
I don't know. Do I really love this man? I mean, it was a thing, you know. And I probably didn't help. Like, no, Alicia, don't go.
Baby girl, you should stay here. And I'm like, right.
Probably didn't help me. Like, I don't know that's the Lord, you know. But isn't that something? I mean, I know we didn't do that, but there are people that don't hear from God. Just like in this sermon, there are people that don't hear what you hear from the Lord.
Yeah.
And they try to discourage you from obeying God's word because they didn't hear it. They don't want you to do it.
Oh, I got that. Oh, I got plenty. Everybody was like, girl, are you sure? Like, this is what you've been waiting for. Dallas is your life. You have your home here. You have all this going on.
Because it makes sense. It's logical.
Right.
I mean, why would you leave?
You know,
right.
Everything is going. And I was like, in the forefront, everything looked great. But they didn't see the silent frustrations where God was ruffling my feathers because he was like, I need you to move. And in order to get you to move, I need to start making this uncomfortable for you.
That's right.
And I was like, okay. And so when I started seeing things starting to shift, I was like, oh, yeah, you are trying to get me to move. Yeah. He kept saying, it's bigger. It's bigger. You have to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that whole period, like I said, it became a time of rest for me.
Yeah.
And I got frustrated because I didn't understand at that time how to rest. I was so used to always doing and working and having to take care of people and do this and ministry this 100%. And I was just like, what you mean be still?
That's right.
And to literally to be in this season where no matter what I touched, I saw it crumble. I'm like, hold on.
That's right.
This is not normal to me.
Yeah.
But you know, he's like, but I got you. I gave you grace for this place. Like, had he not given me the grace for it, then I would have been in my own strength. I would have been in my own flesh.
That's right.
That would have been.
And trying to make it work.
Right.
You would be doing it in yourself. It's almost like Houston for you had to be a season of a Sabbath.
Yes.
It was like your Sabbath for those 5 years. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's probably one of the only commandments we rarely obey.
Oh, God. Yeah.
We don't take a day of rest.
It was the Sabbath. It was the backside of the mountain like Moses.
But you needed it.
I needed it.
Right? Because you're not exaggerating at all. This girl's not exaggerating. She was always working. She was always nonstop, just doing everything and did everything well. but God loves you enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we feel like it's probably the wilderness.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing something different that you haven't done before. This is preparing for more.
Yeah.
Preparing for something that you haven't done, maybe you haven't seen.
Yes.
Right? It looks different. It feels different. So naturally, our natural way wants to fight against what we don't know.
Right.
Right? Especially if it feels different. We feel alone. We might feel isolated. Right? You were out there by yourself. You only had your husband.
I spent 3 years in my house.
Yeah.
I had no real outside community. It was me, those four walls, and my husband when he came home from work. And he was just like, "Babe, you gotta," and I'm like, "No, the Lord wants me here."
Yeah.
And as crazy as it sounded to him, he had to trust my relationship with the Lord.
That's right.
To be like, okay, if she says she's fine, she's fine.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, he's like, you need to be out, you need to be happy, and you don't want to go. I'm just like, no.
You're like, I'm good.
I'm good. Like I literally had a grace for the space and the place that I was in.
Because it was your Sabbath.
It was my Sabbath.
It was your place of rest. And you needed to be. I don't think God's plan for you was to go to Houston and then go be just as busy as you were here in Dallas. That defeats the purpose of what he had for you. Right.
And even though I couldn't see why I couldn't do certain things because I'm a full-time entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur, I'm like, Lord, listen, my bills don't know I have a Sabbath, okay?
Right.
And, you know, as a newlywed, these are conversations that you have during counseling. And and he was just like, yeah, but I'm not just a provider. I'm your sustainer. You know this.
That's right.
And I was like, I do know this, Lord, so I trust you. So when things pop up, I'm like, okay, you know what? You got this. Because this was all in your plan. I don't see the full scope of it, but it's in your plan. I trust you. I'm a rest in that. So what ends up happening is I learned all the stuff about, okay, I need to lay myself on the altar. There's a bigger picture.
Yeah,
God's doing some things behind the scenes in me, in my husband, in our families, just doing all this stuff that I personally can't see. And even though I can't physically put my hand to work, doesn't mean he's not still downloading.
He's constantly, that's right. He's constantly speaking and moving.
Every day he's showing up.
He's playing checkers and chess.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
But just because we don't know everything, and I think that's the thing with us, we always want to be in control of everything. Yeah. Most of us have control issues. Yeah. You know, if we're not the one moving all the pieces, we lack the faith to trust God to do it himself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So in this series, Prepare for More, this is a transition, you know, is a big part. It's a big part of that. You've transitioned. So first of all, you got married.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. That's a transition. Yeah. Right? From singlehood to marriage. Then you had to up and move from everything that you know here in Dallas to a place that you knew not of. Yeah.
The land of my father.
The land of your father.
Because my father and my mother are from Houston.
Yeah, but you weren't there. No. So you had to go there, right? Around not really anybody that you knew, because they're not there now. No. So now you had to transition to a place that you didn't know by faith, right? So you had to walk in an unknown because you clearly heard from the Lord. Yeah. Right? So then you have the transition of just even being a newlywed, number one, because that's the thing. Yeah. That's a thing. That's a whole separate entity. That's something all by itself. Yeah. Is trying to
merge two lives.
Yeah, together as one. So now you've moved away, you're merging two lives, and then some point down the road, you merged your lives enough to where we have a little man. Yeah. Okay. So now we're a new mom.
Yeah. And moved in a pandemic.
Yes. So now, and then moving back. Yeah. So you've had a lot of transition, and that's just in the 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
what did you learn?
Even through those 5 years of just making those moves, another piece of the puzzle was, like I mentioned, as a full-time entrepreneur, God actually spoke to me about,
come on, businesswoman,
about preparing for more during that time frame, because I had to
during this year.
No, this was 2 years ago.
He started talking about preparing for more 2 years ago. But you didn't know what it was.
Didn't even know what it was. And I was just like, okay. Like, I could not see me coming back to Dallas. I had it already settled that this is where my husband wants to be. This is where we're going to be. Yeah. Because no matter how much I loved what I thought God promised me, even though I did experience it to a certain degree, if God said, listen, Alicia, I told you to move to Houston. This is where I want you to be.
Yeah.
If that's where he told me to stay, that's where I was going to stay.
Yeah.
Because I trust God enough
for sure
to know from his track record.
That's right.
You're not leading me here to hurt me.
That's right. You got something for me.
Yeah. The pruning of Dallas, leaving Dallas hurt.
That's right.
It wasn't him making me move that hurt. It was the pruning of everything I knew, the people I knew, and what I thought I knew.
Everything you trusted in. That's right.
That's what hurt.
But what I love about you is you love God way more than all the things you've ever had, than all your community. And you trust him more than even the comfort that you've had with your friends and your family and your lifestyle and your businesses and all of that. And that's what I love about you. And I think sometimes that's where Christians, they lack or they struggle. I don't want to say they lack, they struggle. Because when your situation around you is comfortable and you know it, for some people, they may say, it doesn't make sense logically to leave. God wouldn't be telling me to do something off. Right.
So 2 years ago, I started hearing Prepare for More. And I remember I was sitting in the house and I was just like listening to worship and just kind of like, okay. And I kept hearing, he's like, start living your life like you're already there.
Yep.
And I was just like, what does that mean though? Like,
I love it.
And I literally had to start running my routine because at this point, I hadn't necessarily started working full time from home yet. And then all of a sudden, the opportunity presented itself and I started working from home. And I was like, but I've always seen that in my future. I was like, it's not meant for me to work for other people.
Right.
No, and it's
you've
meant
never
for
been
me
that.
It's meant for me to move, and I'm a creative, and it's just like, I need these outlets.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, okay, well, Lord, how does that look?
Yep.
And literally, I had to start working my day and having this plan as if I was already somewhere. Like I had the kids, and I was homeschooling, and I was doing this. And
by faith.
When things started falling into place, it was just like, okay, well, business is picking up, and this is how it didn't shake me. It was like, I've already positioned myself.
And you're positioned here. You position here and here.
On how to navigate, how to do certain things, how to schedule, how to budget, how to do all this stuff.
Yes.
And then it was like, okay, well, boom, surprise, you're pregnant. Because
well, that ain't no surprise.
Well, because I was surprised for a good while. I was pregnant for a good while before we actually found out. It was just kind of dawned on me. It was like, yeah, I might be pregnant. And then I went and took 5 tests. And I was like, I still don't believe you. Let's do the blood test.
Not 5 tests.
I took 5. And then I still didn't tell him. And I was like, yeah, so by the way, why don't
You're about 9 months in, about to have this baby. And she's like, I got to tell you something, honey.
I'm about 11 and a half weeks pregnant. He's like, you're how far? I was like, I had no symptoms.
Really funny.
So I had no symptoms. I was like, bless Lord. Because I was like, wait a minute. Like, no, this is real.
That is really
There's a whole something fluttering in there.
There's something moving. My organs are moving. Oh my
So when I got pregnant, and then even with him being here now, it was just like, I'm in rhythm. Now, granted, it is another transition. It's another adjustment because I have a whole nother personality to accommodate. So even though I may have had the system ready, because his personality is completely different, it's disrupting the system. And I have to be able to still transition and move and groove. And even with moving back, like my husband woke up one morning and was just like, how do you feel about moving back to Dallas? And I was like,
you're like, who are you?
Who are you? Yeah. Are you playing with my emotions right now?
Right. Where's my husband?
Are we having this conversation?
Right.
And my immediate response, all that was in my head. My immediate response was, okay, is this what you want to do? If this is not something that God has put on your heart, we're not moving. Right. Unless the Lord himself has told you.
Unless you have heard from the Lord.
Clear as day, if you have not heard from the Lord, and he has not given you the peace to move, we're staying.
And see, Alicia, that is maturity. That is maturity. Because you could have easily been selfish or just been like, yes, that's right. That's John right there. Yeah, I'm coming. So no, you could have easily done that. Yeah. But that's a sign of maturity in all of us when we can say, yep, that is something on the inside of me that I would normally want. And I would jump to that to say yes. But instead of me doing that, I want the Lord's will for my life more than I want anything in my own heart. And although I want to move back to Dallas is the number one priority for me, if that is not the will and plan and purpose for your life, Lord, right now, then I don't want it. And that is a mature mindset. That is a mature heart. That is a mature, but it took you maybe going out and stepping out on faith to do something that you didn't want to do in the beginning.
Yeah.
So your obedience to hear God's voice was like, yeah, I told you to go here. It wasn't forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you back.
Yeah.
I just got to do some things. I need to just sit down somewhere.
Yeah. I didn't tell you I was going to bring you back.
Yeah.
Because had I told you that,
Right.
it wouldn't have been a move of faith.
It wouldn't have been a move of faith.
You would have been like, oh, okay, yeah.
That's right. I'm here to test your faith.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's been a beautiful, and honestly, had I not moved,
Yep.
I probably wouldn't be married. It took me moving
I know.
to get to the marriage.
I know. You'd have been like, oh, I don't think we're going to sign those papers.
Right.
But you know what? It's wonderful because I think, again, what we lack sometimes is our will versus his will.
Yeah. And his will is so much more beautiful.
It is. It is beautiful. At the end of the day, some of you may agree or disagree. And I say